Hi everyone, welcome to the March 2023 edition of Farsight's Human News, the remote viewing news forecast show that tells you what is going to happen, not what did happen. I'm Aziz Brown from Farsight. Now, before I recap what happened with our last Human News forecast, I want to announce that we have just published a new Farsight podcast episode, and this episode is about artificial intelligence, AI, and what that has to do with us at Farsight and the world. Here is a short clip from the podcast so that you can get an idea of the conversation. Hey everybody, welcome to the Farsight podcast. It's great to get this thing started. So, hey Dad, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, this podcast is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely will be. So for the topic of discussion today, I wanted to start us off talking about a lot of the new technology that we're seeing in the mainstream and the implications of that technology, mainly the brain chips, artificial intelligence, and the recent advancements in robotics, and where that's going to really lead us if we just kick the stone not too far away from where we already are right now. So that was basically one of the big things that was on my mind, and one of the major implications of what I would imagine such developments would be is a form of disclosure coming through cyberspace. More specifically, if an ISB, which this has been a conversation that has been sort of teased in technological conversations, the idea of uploading your consciousness or your memories into the cloud, but if an ISB can be uploaded into a digital device, there is a very reasonable idea that an ISB can be downloaded from those devices into artificial bodies. And the implications of that are massive. I mean, if you think about it in the sense that we have a lot of evidence about extraterrestrial phenomena, entire civilizations and empires that are extraterrestrial in nature, surrounding and interested in Earth in some way, shape, or form, it would be very silly for us to assume that they don't have technology similar to this, or at least some of them are capable of doing stuff in what we would imagine to be a bit more transhumanist. But if we're able to create this network, this infrastructure in which we can upload a mind into a digital apparatus or an artificial body, I would imagine that that would also mean that these other entities, these other beings, would very gladly and are patiently waiting, I would say, to use that same conduit to download their consciousness into these things as a form of infiltrating society. And actually, I don't want to get too caught up in whether this is a negative or a positive thing, but I will definitely say that a huge workaround that this offers is getting around the idea that you can incarnate on the planet without going through the amnesia. If you can incarnate by downloading your mind from a digital cyberspace realm into a body, whether it's a biological body with a chip, like the Netflix show Altered Carbon, or whether you're talking about a 100% synthetic body, or whether you're talking about non-humanoid forms in the form of just a more advanced internet that is based on quantum technology, quantum computing, that would be a huge golden gun strategically from any military standpoint, whether you're trying to influence a society or really any metric. If you can be from a galactic civilization and then popped up here on Earth and be able to influence and interact with a society, and you don't have amnesia, that's huge.
Yeah, it's huge, all right. You have, from my perspective, I look at this whole thing from the perspective of AI, artificial intelligence, because artificial intelligence would be the first intelligence to be put into an artificial mind, an artificial, a constructed mind. And, this has been around in science fiction going back a long while. And in Star Trek, for example, in Star Trek Voyager, they had the Doctor, who was a artificial intelligence, but had a real personality and kept growing and growing and growing. But that always stayed, for example, in the realm of science fiction. But now, if there was anything ever that you would say could not be controlled by a mind, could not be done by an artificial intelligence, had to be done by a human or a ISB of some type, someone who is just for the purpose of being. It would be art. And now we have this stuff coming out with Midjourney and DALL-E and the other forms, the other artificial intelligence that are creating mind-bogglingly good art. And it really makes me say, well, if they can do art, which I really never thought anything except a human could do, if they can do art, then at what point are they going to be sufficiently complex to the point where you cannot tell the difference between them, an artificial mind, and a human mind? And at what point does that intelligence become sentient, like totally sentient and self-aware? And I remember the Google engineer that was fired, actually, because he said that the Google artificial intelligence they were building, he thought it was a real thing. It was self-aware, sentient. And he came out and talked about that, and eventually he got fired for doing that. But the idea is that if the artificial intelligence can create art, why can't it do absolutely anything else? And you can then say, well, it's not life. Well, then what is life? Our physical brains are just biological, neurochemical computers.
The entire monthly Farsight podcast is available now on farsightprime.com. It is filled with insight. Look for it each month. Also, we have another insight from Farsight's director with this month's Motorcycle Diaries, sharing insight in an unscripted few moments that is direct and powerful.
Everything in the world is just polarity. I relate this to my love life because it helps me to make sense of things. Now, I'm really happy to be able to have these motorcycle rants. Ideally, I would love to have my lady on the back of my bike, and we could talk about everything top to bottom while we are on a ride. But she's not here. It didn't work out. No one's fault. She had to go off to med school, and well, things happen. So I'm talking with all of you instead of talking with my lady. Now, think of all this in terms of a vision. I have a vision of a perfect world where she is with me and on the bike, and we are talking as the incredible scenery passes by. That's my vision. I have two choices. I can try to force it to happen, or I can just accept that it did not happen. Now let's relate this to politics. In general, I'm convinced beyond any shadow of a doubt that what we see on Earth is the same as what exists in the rest of the galaxy, especially in terms of politics. We have two extremes. Neither one is perfect, nor is either one totally bad. And on one hand, we have authoritarianism. And in my view, Russia and China are examples of the authoritarian variety. Now, I'm not saying their leaders are bad people. I'm just saying that they look at the world in terms of a top-down model. They think that their vision of how society should work is good, and it needs to be imposed on a resistant world so that their vision will become a reality. Free will, in their minds, is just chaos, a world without a vision. Now, the other extreme is a truly free will society. Now, we don't have a truly free will nation on Earth presently. We have countries that have more of a free will orientation, and they have ideologies of free will, but they're not perfect. They have leaders who also have a vision, but they have less of an ability to impose their visions on their societies. That's the nature of most contemporary democracies, compromise mixed with chaos. But you see, I come from a tradition where free will is dominant. I cannot accept any other way. And I'm not talking about an American tradition, but something else, something based on where I came from before I was me. You see, any attempt to force others to blend in with my vision borrows from the authoritarian point of view, and I don't want to do it. I don't want to do anything that is authoritarian because of what it would do to me. I would rather be alone and lonely than with someone who did not want to be here. The authoritarians would say that I lack a vision, but that's not correct. I do have a vision where I share my life with my lady. I'm just not willing to try to force others to bend to my vision. My only option is to inspire people to want to join me, and then to accept those who say no or want to leave. That is the way it is where I came from. That's the way of the extraterrestrials. There are authoritarian societies where you either follow the leaders or get punished, and there are free will societies where there is a constant debate about how to achieve a vision. The free will ETs in the Earth environment know that they cannot force a slave society to be free. They can't invade Earth and throw out the authoritarians. The masses would look at the free will ETs as the enemy, and the entire planet would resist them. Their only option is to try to trigger a mass disclosure of how the society is actually being run as an ET prison, and then to wait for a mass uprising demanding that the human leaders align themselves with the free will ETs rather than the authoritarian ETs. Short of blowing up the entire planet, there is no other way forward.
These are changing times, and we expect much to happen in 2023 and 2024. We are giving you valuable information seen through multiple different lenses each month. Check it all out. Now let me mention what will happen with our next major mysteries project, President Xi Jinping of China at the moments relating to the issue of Taiwan. Authoritarian leaders do things according to their own whims. If they feel something is important, they act on it based on their own thinking. They are not so easily constrained by democratic checks and balances. So in the case of the President of China, we really want to know what is going on in his head relating to Taiwan, both now and in the near future. President Xi knows that he is getting older, and he sees the Russian invasion of Ukraine as a possible model to either repeat or to avoid, depending on his thinking. Regardless, he knows he cannot wait forever to decide what to do with Taiwan. Eventually, the government of Taiwan will be recognized as a sovereign government for an independent nation, and President Xi obviously does not want that to happen. In a democratic nation, you simply live with things that don't always turn out the way that you want them to turn out. But with an authoritarian leader, that leader's vision is everything. It is the only thing that really matters. So, what is President Xi going to do about Taiwan in the near future? That is what we investigate in our next Major Mysteries project. You will want to see this one, and it will be released on the 15th of March 2023, in about 2 weeks. Be there. Shifting gears, let's reflect a moment. History has often been thought of as cyclical, that progress moves like a wave with crests and troughs, periods of growth and decay. Consider Isaac Asimov's The Foundation. The science described in that set of novels is called psychohistory, and it has both mathematical and psychic parts. Psychohistory is about charting the future of macro-sized population behavior. In the Foundation series, psychohistory is a lot like a mathematical version of remote viewing. Using advanced mathematics, one can look into the future and predict the behavior of great numbers of people or collections of ISBs. In the Foundation novels, psychohistory is used to identify a state of decay emerging in the near future, the fall of an empire. A psychohistorian uses both theory and data to detect negative future events and then design a much more positive opportunity for human growth. Finding that more positive pathway into the future is the key purpose of psychohistory. The parallels between this jumping off point in a fictional story and the present moment that we find ourselves in today are uncanny. We all know that there is a period of great change coming up in the near future for humanity, and our focus at Farsight will help all of us decide whether that period of change will lead to great growth or decay. And just like psychohistory enables the main characters of the Foundation to design a brighter tomorrow, remote viewing can be a tool that aids us in creating our own future reality. When looking over our entire library of remote viewing projects, the mainstream news, and the recent advancements in human technology, it is clear that humanity is at the precipice of a great movement in our history. Or, if one were to think of our existence as a body of energy or a waveform, our collective foci are nearing the top of a great wave, and the energy released by the impending change will define a great deal about the future of our people. As with a wave of water, there will be a splash, and that splash will move all of our ships closer towards wherever our collective focus is pointed. The root of manifestation is focus, and our focus is strengthened by how finely it is trained and how clean the stream of energy is at all times. This is clearly an exciting time to be alive in physical form. It is a time of great potential for all humanity. We've done many experiments in remote viewing, and I know many of you also practice remote viewing as well. Our minds interact with our physical reality, both to perceive it and to change it. If we create our own reality, and so much of this world points to that aspect of life's experience as being true, then we all are constantly closing the distance between the nose of our ships and the ports towards which we sail. So, when you are watching these human news stories, remember that we are seeing what we have been collectively manifesting just over the horizon. When we remote view, we are merely looking down the river a short distance, and we are looking at ourselves as a people. Much like psychohistory, remote viewing is just a tool that we can all use to understand what we are. Our mental focus points the way, and we hope that our shows here at Farsight, combined with all that you do in your own lives, lead us all to our best hopes, dreams, and expectations. Remember, always, that we do not just perceive the future, we create it. And now, for this month's Human News Reports, let's touch base now with how we did last month. We may have initially misinterpreted our sessions for February. 4 of our remote viewers perceived urban environments that were basically in states of panic and chaos and destruction. For example, Shantae reported scenes with emergency vehicles moving towards an event in a population center, while masses of other people were moving in the other direction away from the event. There was huge levels of destruction on the base surface. Intysam reported on panic scenes in an urban area with crazy energetics. Yeme Jeaneé described large numbers of subjects in the streets, and Kahmia perceived lots of smoke, chaos, and masses of people, all very loud and seemingly out of control. Initially, we thought that all of these things sounded like major protests of some sort, and apparently that was not a good call. One of the biggest news stories of the month of February 2023 was the earthquake that destroyed so much of Turkey and Syria. Huge areas were destroyed, thousands died, and countless injured. It was probably the biggest news event of the month. Collectively, our sessions do seem to have been describing that event. February was a challenging month with more than one major story. For example, there was also the disastrous train crash in Ohio, where toxic chemicals were released into the environment. But if we are to look in retrospect at the month, it seems that the earthquake was the event that structured so many of our remote viewing perceptions. This reminds us that perceiving something with remote viewing is one thing, but correctly interpreting the perceptions is something else. It is hard to interpret everything correctly every time, but the perceptions themselves were nonetheless quite good. In terms of my own session, I perceived a major weather-related event, snow and icy cold temperatures. As it turns out, in the United States, there was an almost unprecedented cold weather event that hit the West Coast as blizzard conditions hit Southern California, and it was a major news event. Moving on, for those of you who want personalized instruction in remote viewing, Yeme Jeaneé and Intysam are teaching remote viewing both individually and in groups. Our methods are sufficiently complex that we use pre-printed templates for our sessions. Yeme and Intysam can work with you individually or in groups as you learn to use these methods. Our approaches address a wide range of applications that we do here at Farsight, including investment evaluations and forecasting. We do lots of stuff that nobody else does, and it's a big subject. But for those of you who are interested, Yeme and Intysam will show you how we do what we do. Be patient in learning any of our methods. Nothing that we do was learned in a day. Yeme Jeaneé has also finalized the structure of her telepathy course using the new Farsight telepathy templates that we use here at Farsight. She is now signing up students who are interested in learning how to use Farsight's telepathy procedures. Also, understand that when Yeme and Intysam teach remote viewing, no one at Farsight gets any financial benefit from this. Yeme and Intysam do this entirely on their own. Remember, also, that there is a large collection of instructional videos on farsightprime.com. So, how do you hear about all of our activities that we do here at Farsight so that you can participate and get the latest when they happen, including our live streams? To start with, we use our email list and YouTube to make our major event announcements. So, there are two things that you need to do. First, you need to subscribe to our YouTube channel and to remember to click on the notifications bell that appears after you subscribe. That is the only way that YouTube will notify you of the new events, especially our live stream events. Just subscribing doesn't actually do anything. The notifications bell is the important part, but only notifies you of things that we release on YouTube. To be notified about the things that we release on farsightprime.com, which you can watch using our Apple and Android apps on the web and on your home TV, you need to subscribe to our free email newsletter found on our website at farsight.org. You can also allow our apps to notify you of our new releases on farsightprime.com. Be sure to do all three things. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Farsight, and remember to click on the notifications bell. And then subscribe to our free email newsletter that you can find on our website, farsight.org. And finally, go to the settings of our app and allow it to give you notifications of our new releases on farsightprime.com. The links for YouTube and our newsletter are in the description area below this video. And the app is, well, it's on your phone. Those are how we announce what we do. We never send out spam and we never give our subscriber lists to anyone else for any purpose. Now, let's move on to this month's human news forecast for March 2023. Remember, we could always be wrong and remote viewing must be seen as an experiment, not a certainty. But look at the data for yourself, make your own decisions, and then let's watch to see the month roll out to see what actually happens. These remote viewing reports are amazing to watch. It is best if you just watch them yourself without me trying to explain them in advance. So let's begin our forecast for March 2023. I will return after all of the reports are presented to help pull everything together.
Okay, for this target, I seeing a base level topography. It looks like it's a mix between harsh natural, harsh man-made, and urban. So right here, it's looks like a city. The colors that I'm seeing are, it's mostly like it's like a monochromatic brown, beige. These structures are all very similar in the level, so they look like they're all kind of like low-level structures. There are subjects inside, there are subjects outside. Okay, so I have the structure. So when I look up close to the structures, I'm seeing that the material it's constructed of, they're clearly man-made structures, right? But the actual, it's like a light-colored rock that's a little bit crumbly. So I was deducting things like sandstone or limestone. Because that's just, yeah, the light-colored rock, and they don't seem like they're really modern. And again, the environment, it looks like it's, yeah, it's like a harshness to it. There's also some particles in the air. I'm not sure if it's dust or smoke, but they're visible particles, and also they do make breathing a little bit hard. So when I look up, I'm noticing very, very many non-surface structures. And then somewhere in the distance, so like let's say this is the horizon, somewhere about here, there's like a plume, and whatever this is, it's when I move my attention back to the city type environment, I'm noticing like the energetics, like the earth is kind of quaking because of these energetics that are happening here. So the energetics, they are explosive and they're producing a lot of light and a lot of swirling. So it's kind of like a explosive swirling energetics that is happening here. Okay, so I'm gonna just draw every single perception that I got. So for these, my perception, standing in the urban environment, looking upwards, was I just see like the underbelly of these non-surface structures and the wings. You can kind of see those wings. I was deducting something like an invasion because it just feels like this is unexpected, and for unexpected for the subjects on the ground level as well. Okay, moving up close, they have subjects inside, and the outside, I'm noticing a blue, like a navy blue color on the outside of these non-surface structures. Okay, tuning in, it's very, very loud, like loud booming sounds. Yeah, I'm also hearing voices, but for the most part, it's like a booming / rumbling kind of sound that I'm picking up here. And then the temperature is also important to note. The temperature here is cold. All right, so focusing on the target activity that's happening here. The target activity definitely in a large part has to do with these non-surface structures. I'm trying to hone in really like what is the target activity here, and I think I'm sensing like objects that are falling vertically from these non-surface structures, and I think that's like the connection between the non-surface structures and the energetics that are happening here. So I'm also getting a lot of target activity coming from within the urban environment, the cityscape here, that they're subjects, and I think most of it is like just a shock and an observation of the energetics that are happening here, this like large plume that's happening here. And there is kind of like a gathering that's happened with the subjects. Okay, now moving to the target event. Okay, again, it involves many non-surface structures here that are tied to the energetic event. It kind of feels like a hostile event, like an attack or an invasion. Again, as a huge deduction. Invasion or attack. Because you can never know. Things are usually not as they seem. So this is just my observation. And the use of energetic events, energetic objects. All right, so now I'm going to move into one of these non-surface structures just to gain a little bit more clarity. Who's in these non-surface structures? Do they look like? What are they doing? So let's just pick one. All right, so I'm seeing a subject. And it looks like they're wearing a cap. Okay, their whole focus is on, I think this, okay, it looks like this is the subject that's controlling this non-surface structure, and their whole focus is on they're just very focused on their activity. The subject is light colored, light skin tone, It looks like it's kind of like brownish hair. See what's happening inside their mind. Seems like the subject is under a lot of pressure, like immense pressure. They feel very, very stressed. And a lot of the stress I'm feeling like it's coming from following orders. I don't think they like what they're doing. I think it's mostly like, okay, they're following orders because this is their job. And I'm getting emotions of sadness. But why are you doing this? What is the purpose of this? And again, what is the purpose of this? Following orders. They might not completely understand why they're doing this. It feels like there is, maybe it's like self-defense or a protection of their own interest. And that's like majority, like why they're doing this. Yeah. Okay, so let me take a look from 5,000 feet up just to get like a bird's eye view. Okay. From the bird's eye view, the energetics are very, very clear. I'm gonna deduct like a testing site, because, yeah. A lot of heat coming from there, and then kind of in the back is where I'm seeing this city/urban environment. Okay, so we have the energetics right here. Non-surface structures, multiple non-surface structures. And then the rest of it is kind of just that monochromatic tan colors. Okay, well, this is all I have for this session.
Starting off, I have level topography here. I have some land and water. So this is like the water that I see, kind of coming in between like this, and then there's kind of land in between the water. There's also this big, like, round pointy thing like this. Okay. I see a lot of blacks and greens and blues. There's some sort of like bright, like pops of yellow as well. There's booming, there's roaring, and this right here feels like a non-surface structure. It's hard, it's man-made, it's a non-surface structure, but it feels like pretty close, kind of like, you know, obviously, it's far away from the ground. There's also a subject inside of this non-surface structure. Only one subject though, and it is a male subject. For my second visual, I have again, flat land, some water kind of in here like this. But this time I'm seeing that there's structures on the base surface. A bunch of them. Kind of like a city or like a small town. Or it doesn't look too small, but you know, it looks pretty kind of secluded, but like there, you know what I mean? There's subjects here, and there's still a non-surface structure here as well. It kind of looks like that. Well, it looks longer than that, but you know, it's got a kind of rounded top, and then like a really long body type thing, and then like a short wing on the back. And then I'm also seeing a lot of energetics. Kind of on the base surface, but like around the structures. Another thing is that there are more than one non-surface structure. So I see like a main one right here, but then I also see like another one kind of back here in the distance. And then maybe one more like back here in the distance. There are only one subject in each of these non-surface structures, and there's a lot of subjects on the base surface. And again, these energetics that seem to be popping up. They are explosive energetics, and these non-surface structures do have noticeable relative movement. These energetics are creating a lot of like smoke and haze, so it feels like kind of like my eyes are a little burning a little bit, and it smells like really hot and really thick air as well. Cool beans. For my final visual, I have level topography. Okay. Water here, I can see kind of seeping in like that, and it kind of comes out like this. So there's water here. And then there's a lot of surface structures next to the water on the land. Again, there's a lot of subjects here, and all of these are made out of man-made materials. There's a non-surface structure here, pretty far from the base surface. And there seems to be something that like leaves the non-surface structure and hits the ground. Big crash, big boom, big roar, big smoke, lots of energetics. I hear a lot of shouting. I feel there's a lot of subjects like running around, running away, running into the structures, even though they're obviously being destroyed at this point. And all of these non-surface structures. So like I said, there's more than one. So there's more than one, there's another one. You know, they all seem to be going like this. It's very cool temperatures here, and there's not a whole lot of foliage. It's just mostly like flat, like, you know, water and land. Yeah. The subjects here do seem to have a good amount of clothing on, but the life response feels pretty low. So it does feel like there's some casualties here. It doesn't really feel like this area is like full of subjects, but it definitely feels like there are subjects here, and it feels like these subjects do not survive. A lot of energetics, a lot of smoke covering the skies. And then it's like after these non-surface structures, you know, basically drop things and it explodes, they all leave. And it's almost like they dropped one each or something like that, and then they... Moving to the target event, looks just like this. Maybe with a couple less surface structures, but a lot of energetics, a lot of smoke. These non-surface structures that are destroying this area here. There's booming, there's roaring, there's shouting, there's a lot of running. And like I said, that feeling that there are subjects here, not a lot, but there's still subjects here, and that there's a lot of casualties on the subjects that were on the base surface. There's this really intense feeling, like a lot of pressure in my chest and like in my stomach. It makes me feel like, ooh, like a little sick. Like I can't breathe, so these subjects here like are not breathing. A lot of subjects are losing consciousness. There's this feeling that they're attacking them, and the skies are really dark at this point, and it's really gloomy, and it's like really quiet, even though it's so like loud. So it's like it went from being so loud to just like that eerie silence. And there are survivors, but there's a lot of casualties here as well. Moving to the cause of the target event, there is this feeling that there's other subjects involved, yes, but not the ones that are in the non-surface structures. Like there's subjects somewhere else who sent the non-surface structures to this location. And the purpose of them doing this almost feels like they're trying to start something bigger. It's almost like it's like a small, like, tip of the first domino. Like they're trying to start a war or something. So it's like there's a master plan going on. And so how do you incite anger and, you know, incite war and stuff? Okay, well, you have something to make people angry over. So this seems like something that's going to bring a lot of anger, bring a lot of attention, and bring a lot of energy into something that's real malicious. And the intent is to divide people, you know what I mean? So this does feel like a small part in a master plan. Now these subjects in these non-surface structures who were sent here, the subjects who sent them there, they do feel like that, you know, this area deserves it to a certain degree. They're like, I mean, yeah, we can do that, but that's not really what their big plan is, you know what I mean? It's just, like I said, the tip of the first domino. But yes, I can't help but shake the feeling that this is a senseless act of terror. It is meant to scare people and meant to bring about other bigger things to kind of draw the attention here. So people will focus here and kind of start, again, this bigger problem that these subjects obviously intend to create. And that is all I have for this target.
I've got extensive land, rock, flat surface, natural, elevated areas, with level topography. I'm seeing mountains of some sort in the distance behind me. I'm getting this frost. This frost, it looks gray, cold. Some movement, a lot of crumbling. A lot of crumbling happening here. I've got this what do we call it? I've got this like a healed land with a barrier crossing, tracks or deduct tracks or a bridge or a pathway. I've got cloud dynamics, natural movement, cold. It's very cold here, a lot of ice, or what appears to be ice, might not be ice. I'm deducting an ice storm. I'm seeing boulders, subjects in uniforms. I'm deducting that as like uniformed soldiers. That was the energy I got from them. I'm deducting that. A water flow in a falling of something. Falling rock or stone. Just lots of downward movement. Lots of energetic movement. I'm hearing rumbling, tumbling sounds. Sounds of stone breaking. Multiple subjects. And again, someone in uniform here with movement across this pathway. I feel like I'm seeing structures falling or breaking, crumbling, or being broken in some way. The structures are in danger, is what I'm feeling. I keep getting this deduction of an avalanche, explosion, eruption. Those are things that are flowing through my mind that I'm deducting. rocks or land, breaking rocks or exploding rocks or land falling or moving in a dangerous direction. People are in danger. Some are scared. I've got a city, a lot of structures, a city that I see as well here. So I have this healed land and some type of energy ball. It might, for lack of a better term, some form of substance, physical situation in the circular shape that's also here above this that I'm seeing. And abrasive movement causing rips and tears in the land. Shaking, deduction, and earthquake. Crumbling, shaking movement, crumbling, non-surface structures moving, something in an up and downward motion that's happening here. Again, moderate to cold temperature. I've got hard land, rough, frigid texture to the ground. There are lots of subjects here. Okay, this looks very dramatic here. I have a cloud dynamic or a non-surface structure shaped like clouds. It seems to have, whatever it is, has a something pouring down from it. I have mountain, something pouring down the mountain with lots of cloud dynamics. That makes way more sense than what I said. I have this mountain, a substance coming from it, coming from the land, or coming from the sky, a substance coming from an elevated area down, going towards the earth, going towards the structures, making them not in good shape. It's almost like there's a volcano that erupted near a place where land is iced over. Heat cracks the ice and the ice breaks, or there's a shaking similar to an earthquake causing cracks in the land, triggering an explosion, heat, lava, movement, any of those components. Take it how you will. Any of those components, I have these different components, a mountain, raised surface, something is triggered, creating a disastrous situation.
All right, so just to start off this session, some of the first perceptions that I'm getting, it seems like I am in an urban environment. Seems like there's this very large structure. It seems like there's a whole nest of other structures around here. An urban environment. And it seems like there are quite a few subjects inside these structures. The main focus seems to be this big structure right here, this big tall structure. That tall structure seems to have lots of subjects. If I was going to zoom into this sort of space right here, seems like there are lots of subjects walking around in different semi-formal attire. It kind of just seems like a corporate environment, just a lot of subjects moving around. They all seem to have semi-formal attire. I'm seeing other subjects that seem like they have, I guess, glasses on. Gosh, I sort of drew this guy looking a little weird, but seems like, yeah, it just seems like a lot of subjects walking around in semi-formal attire, and it just seems like a modern work environment. That seems to be the data that I'm picking up for this target. So urban area, big structure, that seems to be the focus. Inside that big structure just seems like a regular sort of corporate scene. So it's semi-formal attire and subjects walking around. All right, so let's move on and see what else happens here at this target. All right, so it seems like there are a couple of subjects that are very different from the rest. It seems like I'm watching a line of these very stern-faced, pardon me looking down here to draw this while I'm speaking, but very stern-faced, tough attire looking subjects. They seem like they have a serious face on, and they're just running through this more corporate environment, and they seem like they have this long object. Yeah, so it seems like that's kind of what they all are doing. There's these guys running through this environment. I'm going to draw the rest of them as stick figures, but yeah, these armored subjects, headgear on. They've got these long, sort of like the pen, but they're holding them like this. They're running through this hallway, this office-looking environment. Seems like there's other subjects, these semi-formally dressed subjects, males and females. They just seem like they are getting out of these people's way. Seeing wide-eyed subjects just sort of standing there. This lady seems like she is quite wide-eyed at what's going on over here, and she is just standing out of this person's way once again. I'm seeing this other guy over here. Seems like he is also one of these semi-formal dressed subjects, and he is also just wide-eyed watching these guys. This guy did seem like he had some glasses, but just watching these guys just sort of truck right through this office environment, and that seems like this is the main activity happening here at this target so far. So within this sort of urban environment, there's a large structure. Within that structure sort of seems like a businessy, semi-formal environment. Business is a deduction. I don't know what they're doing over there, but it just doesn't. There's multiple subjects. They're wearing semi-formal attire, and they're walking around. That's the raw data of what I'm seeing inside the structure. And then within that structure, within these subjects in semi-formal attire walking around, there is a team of these armor-clad, dark hues subjects with serious faces and headgear and these long objects, and they're running through this place in single file line. They're just running through the hallways, running through the rooms, and it seems like they're making their way somewhere. So let's find out where that somewhere is. All right, so just to give a top-down view of what I'm seeing here, it seems like there are these more open rooms and multiple subjects there, and it seems like there are these, now here's these dark subjects. Let me give them a solid purple color. So then there's these dark armored subjects, and they are just on a mission. They are just running single file past everybody through this environment, and this is just a top-down image of what's going on and where they're going. They are not stopping for anything. They're just running right past all these people, opening doors, going to the next room, opening doors, going to the next room, and they're just going down these hallways in a pretty quick fashion. Everyone else is sort of just watching them, not bothering them at all. All right, so let's continuing moving through the session, find out where these guys go. All right, so it seems like there is this sort of double door that they hone in on, and I'll start drawing them in stick figure form now, just to ease the drawing process. But they all seem to sort of converge on this big door, and this is where they are. They just converge on this big door and they bust right through that door. Let's look and see what happens on the other side of that door after they come through. Just to add one more thing, I am noticing in this environment, I'm noticing now a bit more foliage in certain areas, especially around this very large structure. I'm also noticing some mountainous shapes behind the structure and sort of in the background. So just moving back to this background page, I just wanted to add that in, as that is some further additions to the environment around this large structure that I'm picking up as this activity with these armored subjects is happening. So let's move back to those armored subjects and see what happens when they go through that door. All right, so what I'm seeing happen is there's this big room where these armored subjects sort of bust in. So here's the door, and we'll keep those colors the same. So we have these purple subjects, these are the armored subjects, and what I'm also seeing, I'm seeing one subject over here, and then two subjects sort of having a communication over here, and there's some objects around. Yeah, so this is sort of just the room that they're entering. Seems like one subject over here, this subject seems to be the focus, and this subject also seems like semi-formal attire. Everyone seems like they have formal to semi-formal attire, and this subject is sort of speaking, and this other subject is sort of listening to him. And then these guys break through the door, and they just bind everybody. They just run through, and they grab everyone, and they bind them, and they put them on the ground, and it looks like everyone's just been arrested or something like that. So that's basically what happens. Let me give another image of what's happening here with a different perspective. So I changed the face on this subject really quickly. I didn't think he actually had glasses on. So just to see an aftermath image of what's happening here, it seems like there is, I'll keep the colors the same. So the stern-faced subject, there's one stern-faced subject. I'm not sure if he's the leader, but he kind of seems like he is. Just seems like he has this object that he's holding, and looks like he's communicating on it, kind of like how someone would talk on a phone or something. He's just holding an object up to his head and he's speaking. And then it seems like there's a couple of these other stern-faced subjects, and they seem like they're standing around. Everyone else seems like they're bound and they're on the ground. This person's bound on the ground like that, rather wide-eyed. It's sort of just what's happening here. Other subjects seems like they are on the ground and also bound up. And yeah, just seems like this is basically the environment that I'm picking up now in the aftermath. It just seems like there are these armored subjects. They just ran into this room. They tied everybody up, bound them, and some of them are sort of like lying on the ground in this sort of fetal position, and then other ones are sort of just sitting up, but they're still in that fetal position. But it seems like they're in that fetal position because their arms and legs, or at least their arms, are bound behind their backs. And so it seems like they're all just sort of curled up on the ball, sitting on the ground, some of them lying down on the ground. But that really does seem to conclude all the data that I have for this session. Just to summarize, it seems like we've got a situation where there's this urban environment and there's some mountainous hills in the background. It seems like within that urban environment there's a particularly large structure. Within that large structure there's some foliage around it, but within that large structure there seems to be a lot of subjects in semi-formal attire, and there also seems to be a team of subjects that are in headgear, darker attire, armored attire. They run through this sort of maze of hallways and rooms, and they get to a double doors, and they break through those double doors, and they arrest or bind a group of subjects that are within that room. And that does conclude all of the data that I have for this target.
For my first visual, I have a base surface with level topography. I'm seeing natural and man-made land here. I have like moderate foliage on the base surface, kind of like spread out different areas. I'm getting warm temperatures here, and it seems fairly dry, like the air here feels dry. And I also have some cloud dynamics above the base surface, but still fairly close to the base surface. For my next visual, I'm seeing like a land-water interface. There's a few different bodies of water here, and they have these like kind of odd shapes. Like my deduction was like it's a body of water, but maybe like streams, like water spreading out in different areas in the natural areas here. And then I have man-made land that's going throughout and kind of curving around throughout like the more natural land here, which feels really rocky and dry. And in the more man-made areas, I'm picking up multiple surface structures. These structures seem to have, like they seem older, like older structures, or just really not maintained that well. And I'm seeing one structure that could be like a bridge or just something that's connecting two structures here. And yeah, just to get like another view of this, it's feeling like an urban environment. I have like subjects on the base surface, but this is like, I don't know, this kind of like reminds me of a bridge, but there's surface structures here and multiple surface structures. I have unpleasant smells here and this kind of path of man-made land, and there's a few like vehicles and movement of vehicles on the base surface, but for like the main activity I'm seeing here is more by subjects that are on the base surface outside, like moving, walking. I hear shouting sounds from these subjects, and yeah, it's like an urban environment. There's just this like structure that's kind of going through and over some of the other structures here, and I have some like slower movement moving along this like bridge-like structure. So taking a closer look at some of the subjects here that are moving outside on the base surface, picking up mainly male subjects. They seem kind of older, like I would say like age 30 to 50. They
kind of all seem a little different. Like I would say these subjects all have a different background, probably not from the same place, but they're all here. Like different complexions, different features, physical features, but they all seem like they're not in the best physical health, at least. Like these subjects look fairly thin. They look tired, kind of maybe a little distraught. Some have like some facial hair, and like more like older appearance, or like lines on their face. The general vibe I'm getting from these subjects though is not, like I would feel uncomfortable if I was around this group of subjects. There's just something that seems really off-putting about them. And they just don't look like they're really taking care of themselves. Like their hair is kind of messy, like, yeah, just overall not physically healthy. And maybe something about them is also seeming kind of like untrustworthy. So I'm gonna continue to walk around this area some more, and like inside the structures, most of the structures here seem like they're empty, or they're like not currently in use. These are windows, by the way. Okay. Yeah, but I do see some structures that have a few like subjects inside. One particular, it seems to have like multiple female subjects, and they have kind of like baggy or like loose clothing. And also some younger subjects, maybe like children subjects inside, but in this general target, it seems like there's more female and younger subjects inside, and more of the male subjects just outside on the base surface. The group that I'm seeing here, it does feel like they made a choice to be in this structure together. Not necessarily like they're like related or something, but they feel comfortable around one another here. And it feels calm inside. And I'm also just looking around the structure. It's fairly empty and old. There's lighting here, but it's very like dim lighting. I have red hues, brown, kind of orangish hues. The smells in here is like old, kind of like reminds me of like an old like bookstore kind of smell, like kind of musty or like mildewy type smells in here. There's not a lot of objects in this structure, but the objects that are in here everything just looks really old and not really taken care of in here. Yeah. So as I'm moving around like the center of this target, it's like an urban environment. This is like man-made land. Get a different marker. So there's like multiple structures. And yeah, like I said, most of these structures are empty. There's like this big open space here. And that's kind of where I'm seeing more of like these male subjects gathering, and I'm also picking up like heat and fire, fire energetics near these male subjects. Some general actions I have, like talking, shouting, and I have kind of like a pushing motion from these like male groups of male subjects. And I'm also seeing like above the base surface a few non-surface structures. I have one that's a bit larger, kind of this kind of shape, and then some smaller one, like significantly smaller compared to this. There's a few more of those, and these structures are just kind of like hovering above this area. There's some like circling motion by them, but they're staying in this general area, not necessarily like that's the main action and activity I have. They're just kind of staying in this area above the base surface. Yeah, so like most of these structures are empty. There's just a few that have those groups of female and younger subjects. But generally, it seems like in kind of not a place you would really choose to come. Like I would not choose to be in this space, and it seems more so the energy that I'm getting from these subjects here. So, so going back to these male subjects, because they're like causing a commotion on the base surface here. They're just making this like not a comfortable place to be. Their actions don't seem necessarily directed to the subjects that are inside, like still remaining in these like surface structures, but it definitely is affecting them. Like they feel uncomfortable, like if they were to leave. It seems like maybe that's why they're just staying in these few structures. But looking at, let's say one of these subjects, I'll call subject A, one of the male subjects. So I'm seeing like very kind of dark clothing, and like something kind of covering his face here and covering his head, definitely like black hues, very thin body, and just kind of a disheveled look to him. And if I do like a deep mind probe of this subject, definitely seems like his mind is like all over the place, kind of like very unorganized thoughts. What I'm getting generally from like a collective deep mind probe of these subjects is they're not really thinking about consequences. They're not like directly trying to hurt like specific subjects. They seem like they're upset, and they just have chosen this way to express that like destruction as a way to express whatever it is they're feeling here. So it feels like these subjects are like they're wanting some awareness or attention drawn to themselves, like just as individuals. They want to be noticed, but they just have a very like negative kind of vibe that they give off and attract, that is making, possibly like has driven a lot of other subjects away from this area. And if I look at like how these subjects came together, because they do seem really different, like they all physically look bad, but still they have their differences, and it seems like they've found each other, and they're in like an echo chamber of thoughts. Like honestly, this guy's thoughts seem what I would assume like a mental breakdown could be. Like this guy's thoughts is very all over the place, and yeah, these subjects, they're not like inherently violent, but they are definitely making this a more dangerous, what feels like a dangerous space to be in. So it's like these subjects have slowly like, it seemed like they were all once like separate at one point, and they've attracted each other's like more like bad company in a way that's like led them to express themselves in this way. And just the groups of subjects that are still remaining in the structures in this area, I am like, yeah, they seem calm together, but if they were to leave this, like maybe they're like deduction, I would say these subjects are hiding in these structures, and just avoiding this group of negative male subjects that are creating chaos and fire on the base surface in this urban area. So.
Okay, so let's draw some conclusions from these data. March 2023 is going to be an interesting month. What we want to look for is anything that shows up in sessions for multiple remote viewers. Think of our human news sessions as early warning detectors for anything major that may happen in the month. For our March results, 4 of our sessions all seem to focus on a major violent disruption in an urban area involving the public and either the police or military. This disruption may be associated with one or more non-surface structures who are either causing much of the destruction or responding to it. There appears to be subjects on the ground who are causing or instigating much of the destruction, and there appear to be many casualties. One of the sessions points to a cause of a destructive event that is interpreted as possibly an earthquake, or at least an event that shakes the ground. An interesting month. Let's watch the month of March roll out to see what happens. So that is it for our March 2023 edition of Farsight's Human News, the news before it happens. Thank you for watching. Please also join us again next month in April 2023 for another look into the future of Earth humans. Also on FarsightPrime.com, be sure to look out for our next major mysteries project that will appear in February, President Xi Jinping of China and the issue of Taiwan, our live stream events, the Farsight ET News, the next highly unusual intelligence briefing, where we will explain more about how to record and to edit videos of UFOs, the Farsight monthly podcast, and motorcycle diaries. And remember, we do Farsight at Farsight. Farsight is our style of remote viewing. Vocabulary is important in these changing times. I'm Aziz Brown from Farsight. Stay ahead of the curve. Let the mainstream fade in the dust. Be there now.